Good morning, Bitcoin, and welcome to Proof of Work. Proof of Work is a show about the people behind Bitcoin and how they got here. Today we're joined by Giacomo Zucco. How's it going, Giacomo?
Fine. Conference so far is great, and the venue is incredible.
It's the
We are
old
taking
stock
over.
exchange,
Yeah.
yes. It's good to be in the home of the banks, yes. We're in the home of the corporation, the first corporation invented in Amsterdam. And yeah, it's exciting to be taking a little ground back maybe for Bitcoin, huh?
Feels like a takeover, yeah.
Yeah.
Not so style takeover.
No. But we like this. We'll keep all the arches and the columns. It's classy.
Yeah.
So we'd like to go ahead and get started with everyone's most favorite and familiar question. What was your first computer?
So my first computer, if you can call it like that, was a Commodore 64.
Nice.
So it was mostly audio cassette video games.
Yeah.
So you had to load with audio cassette and then maybe do some basic game. There was some programming possible back then. So I was probably, 12 or something.
Sure.
I tried, but very unsuccessful. So I was a technical bluff back then, like I am today. I'm not really into computer science as a deep level. But then my most interesting experience was later on, 2 years later, when my uncle actually brought over from an hospital a personal computer. It was an Olivetti, because there was this big company in Italy that was actually
They make typewriters, very Italian.
Yeah, and from typewriters, they basically invented personal computer before American giant, but then for typical Italian mismanagement and bureaucracy, basically they failed to beat the American competitors to the market. But they were pioneers in computer science. And this Olivetti computer was my first personal computer. What I did the first day was to explore it a bit, and what I did the second day was to, I like symmetry, I like aesthetics, so I moved every system file in a specific folder, following some aesthetic criteria. So like this system.dll. It doesn't fit. It doesn't look very good in this folder. Let's move it here. So I finished my polishing of the aesthetical structure, and then I turned off and I tried to turn on again, and then I didn't use computer for a few months because I destroyed it in the second day. Yeah. So if I ever will become good enough to submit any PR on Bitcoin, I urge everybody to just reject it. It's not safe.
Well, I definitely broke my share of computers, but then I learned quickly that reinstalling the operating system fixes most everything.
Yeah.
So if you deleted that system file, or if you randomly moved them around because you preferred your own structure, you just got to go back to the basics and reinstall Windows, reinstall DOS, even if you have to. But
back then I think you had to install DOS before with several floppy disks, and then Windows with other floppy disks. So it was probably 1 day of work or something like that.
It took so much time loading that disk and then changing it to the next disk. And you pretty much had to sit there. If you wanted to get it done faster, the fastest way was to sit there so that you could change the disks the instant that you're ready. But that's the kind of good work that humans can do for computers. So I hope that the AI will keep us around so that we can change the disks and perform other valuable human functions that certainly only a human could perform.
Yeah, absolutely.
So after you broke the computer, did you continue working with them? Did you play games? Did you learn how to program? What did you do next?
So then I started to basically focus mostly. I was a teenager, so it was mostly games, first-person shooters on Windows. So not nerdy at all. I think that before I went to university, I didn't even try a Linux distro ever. I was a Windows guy, just turn on and run your video game, and that's all. In the university, I started to get in contact with Linux people, and it was traumatic. It was like in the physics study, we did it mostly in laboratory experience, where you had to use numerical methods in order to to manage experiments.
Sure.
And so everybody was deep into the Linux culture.
So they're
And
using the command line, and
always
they're
command
running
line.
these programs and
Yeah.
all these flags on the end of things, and yeah, you have no idea, right?
I had no idea. I was clicking everything graphically,
Yeah.
no command line experience ever.
yeah,
so
yeah.
I was feeling really like impaired. And also back then it's was not like Ubuntu and you just run and
Yeah,
it's almost like
no,
Windows. Back
yeah.
then, just to read the CD, you needed probably 3 command line commands just to
and
activate
then,
that.
And then you start messing with the boot partition,
Yeah.
and that's where you can really screw up your hard drive.
Yeah, it was terrible, and everybody else was so knowledgeable that when the gap is so huge that you don't ever even try. So for a while, I was basically just following other people, not really. I was really computer impaired.
Yeah, yeah.
And then by the end of my degree in physics, I had some very junior level experience in open source software and stuff like that. I started to program in Lisp in university.
Sure.
So I became kind of proficient in Lisp, and
what could you make the computer do in Lisp? What kind of things would
everything.
you? Everything? Oh.
Lisp is so general. You can change the language itself during the execution of the language. Is homopoietic. You can do everything.
Nice.
That's one of the reasons I cannot meaningfully contribute right now at anything, especially like C++ or Rust, is because I am so fond of the Lisp clean syntax that I hate C-like syntax. It's so ugly, like the imperative, semicolon kind of syntax.
Sure, you have to put on the end of
I hate
lines,
it.
yeah.
So at the beginning of Bitcoin, where everybody was kind of experimenting Python just for prototypes, I was feeling comfortable because I can read and write Python.
Nice.
But now everybody, like even my employees, they are moving to Rust. And
Yeah.
Rust is C-like syntax, and I read the specification and I don't even try to read the code. I have aesthetical problems.
It's just the style. You don't like the formatting.
Yeah, exactly. Why a semicolon when you can avoid it? I mean, I cannot tolerate that.
How would you know it's the end of the line, though?
Well, there is a new line, comma.
That's good. So after you learned all that, you graduated from physics. How'd you learn about Bitcoin? Were you working in computers at the time, or did someone tell you about it?
So it was an interesting story. So my relationship with open source software pretty much ended with the end of my degree in theoretical physics. So then I was hired by a multinational company, Accenture, to do system design, and I switched back to completely corporate Windows environment. So no open source software. Again, a graphic monkey, clicking
double
monkey.
click, done.
And I was working in UML, SysML, but on Windows. But then I was politically engaged in many political circles, especially 2 political circles that were completely not overlapping. That were like privacy advocacy and Wikileaks kind of. It was kind of cypherpunk, but I didn't know about the term yet.
So you both wanted to keep everything private, but support the guy who publishes everybody's private stuff.
Kind of,
so it's a bit of a swing.
Like probably keep the powerful people accountable with the exposure.
There we go.
But keep the weak people protected by privacy. So
the original idea of WikiLeaks, actually back when it was a wiki and it leaked, and you just put stuff in and it came out. I like that idea.
Yeah.
This new idea, they seem to kind of pattern it. They have a political choice they made. I don't like that one as much. It's not as easy for me to say, like, you put the data on there, they publish it. It's just blind. Whereas now it's like you put the data on there and they kind of shape it and they twist it and they make their own version of it. And I'm like, that's not quite the open source publishing thing that
it's more
they
like a
originally
newspaper
had.
in this case. There is an editorial choice. There is some kind of line.
Yeah.
And it's a different project, but also it faced unpredicted
Sure, well,
kind of
you have to adapt into the world. I mean, they became what they felt they needed to become.
Yeah,
so.
now you have a journalist which is on trial for being
Sure,
a journalist
Assange,
and exposing crime, war crimes. So it's kind of weird. But anyway, back then it was probably 2011, 2012. I was kind of active in this kind of online and offline community. And at the same time, I was active in this kind of Austrian economics gold bug community. And these two kind of political communities were completely not overlapped. I was one of the very few guys present in both, because like usually Austrian economics, Austrian school guys are more conservative, like a general approach, you will define them conservatives, while Wikileaks guys, they were more like counterculture, progressive
cypherpunks and like freedom, information.
And also more civil liberties and stuff like that. So they were both libertarian leaning, but not overlapped. And then I started to hear about Bitcoin, I think in the same month, by both circles, with two different narratives, like gold bugs were talking about Bitcoin as a new digital gold, which is, I mean, it's completely false that the digital gold narrative is new. It was already pretty much discussed back in 2012.
It's the whole basis of value. You have a 21 million, you have this limited unit, so we're already talking deflationary money. Why wouldn't you go towards gold, which essentially has a fixed supply? When we find new gold or we bring in an asteroid or whatever, that's going to screw up the fixed supply of gold. But we're talking about similar things, similar commodities.
And also there was a lot of discussions about Mises' regression theorem. Is Bitcoin compliant with the way Mises described the emergency? So there was a macroeconomical monetary discussion. And Bitcoin is money for privacy. So Bitcoin is black market money, which was the narrative in the other circle. So I was impressed that it was coming up into completely different side of my life. And then there was my professional life. But then in my professional life, I started to discuss with some colleagues about a standard called, I think it was called open transactions. It was something different, but using cryptography a little bit.
I interviewed them back in the day. It was an interesting project.
And that kind of monetas.
For a while, they were trying to do like a stash crypto box. You could kind of run like a node for the thing.
Exactly. It was stash. So I started to discuss professionally that technology. So back around the end of
all three of your circles are going now,
And that was, Bitcoin for me was exactly some unexpected red tape unifying three completely different aspects of my life. Two advocacy, political, but not professional, not technical things. They were more like free time stuff. And one professional and technical, let's say, topic. And so it was Bitcoin. All the way down. And so was my wife actually, Mir. Once I was complaining that I was getting bored at my job because I wanted to do Bitcoin, and I was starting to become cynical in my political activism because back then I started an Italian Tea Party. But before the Republican takeover of
the original idea,
the original Ron Paul campaign about the Tea Party. So I was debating politicians in Italy on national TV about taxes. It was fun, but it was useless because basically I was trying to shift the Overton window in the debate, but it was really, I was getting more and more disillusioned about the actual outcome of activism. So Bitcoin came at the right moment, and my wife actually told me, well, this is a unifying thing in your life. You should focus on that. It was May 2013, and then basically next week, after this conversation with Mia, I quit my job at Accenture, and I said I will become a Bitcoin entrepreneur. Then I didn't have any focus, so instead of just doing one project, I co-founded or worked with, I think, almost 16 different startups. And of course, they all failed, except for a very few exceptions. Like I was working with Lawrence Naomi on Green Address, and Green is now Blockstream, so that was a success story. I did basically nothing. I was a biz dev guy back then, but that was one startup which survived pretty well. And a few, like I had a payment experiment in Panama, a mining experiment in Switzerland, a blockchain for tracking food experiment in Italy. That bullshit. But back then, 2013.
It was fresh back then. It was new. Like we had a whole wave of blockchain in like 2014, and it blew over. And we're all like, oh, thank goodness that's over. And now we have an even bigger wave of blockchain driven by even bigger people with more money that know so much more than us. but at the same time are overspending to get a database.
Yeah, it's a business version of Eternal September. You have a business new business trying to reinvent the wheel.
Yeah.
So this company didn't fail actually. The idea was to use the blockchain. Sorry guys, to track wine from the producer to the consumer. It was nonsense, but we managed to pivot the company to a completely non-blockchain stuff. Now it's working fine. It was acquired by a big certification company. So it was a success story because we ditched the blockchain narrative at a certain point.
There it is. That's a sign of the future. That's what's going to happen to all these companies. Like, remember all that money you gave us for blockchain? Well, we spent it all, and we figured out you could do it a lot cheaper and easier with a database.
Exactly.
Whoops. I've seen so many, and they talk about it, and they're like, yeah, we had pieces of paper before, and now we have a blockchain. And I was like, you could just switch to a database. You just never upgraded to a database, and now you took the blockchain money to upgrade to a database. Yeah. You'd get the same functions and features. The people delivering your garbage, the farmers, they're not hacking your database. They're not a threat to your database in the way that someone would want to hack Bitcoin because you get the money. Everyone wants the money. No one wants to edit your farm loads or your garbage loads, whatever you're doing.
Also, most of this data is really just, it is needed to inform the decision of a centralized entity anyway.
Sure.
And when you have a centralized entity enforcing any decision, then you don't need to outsource chronology to some kind of decentralized network. It's just crazy.
We can trust our software. Like, they pay these database administrators hundreds of thousands of dollars.
And
you should trust them. Yeah, they're the ones that can edit your database.
They're the decisions anyway, so they are the ultimate judge. It's them. So I remember pitching my partners at this company. I think I used the myblockchain.xyz website, which is a great website.
Yeah.
So you can go there, myblockchain.xyz, and I used that in order to pitch the fact that basically it's a MySQL fork, which is where the tables is renamed with blocks, and records are renamed as transactions or something like that. And it's you can download it and run it, and it's the best private blockchain ever.
There you go.
And it's great, try it. And so most of my efforts failed completely.
Yeah.
I spent a lot of Bitcoin, really. And then I lost every remaining Bitcoin in a tragic boating accident.
Yeah.
So, this is life. And then in 2015, in the spring 2015, I took a decision. Basically, there was no clear business model in Bitcoin. For example, take Green Address Wallet. I was so proud to work with Lawrence because it was the first multi-sig wallet, the first P2SH multi-sig, the first with the sub-account, Bit32 sub-account, the first with hardware wallet compatibility. So it was a masterpiece of technology.
Yeah.
But then I was in charge to find an investor with a business model. And so my discussion was something like typical, legacy investor. So do you have any patent or intellectual property? I mean, no, this is Bitcoin. I mean, this is for both an ethical and a security model concern. This is completely open source and completely liberal license.
Now, that's shocking to people. They want to own the secure part.
Yeah,
Wouldn't owning the secure part make it more secure?
Well, in some circumstances, yes. We don't have to be ideological because, for example, there is not a way to have a secure element open source yet, maybe in the future. So when you compare, for example, a ledger with a Trezor, there is a trade-off there, which is not just a stupid, it's an interesting and deep kind of trade-off. For example, the Trezor is safer against a nation-state kind of attack, but is less safe against your nerd neighbor trying to attack. While a NanoS is arguably less safe against a nation-state attack, but is way safer against the evil maid or the nerd neighbor. So closed versus open is a debate, but with the Bitcoin wallet, you want it open. I mean, there is a
you're
no
holding
point.
people's money, you're holding their keys. If someone else could check that, find a bug and help you, or just in general, you can contribute that code back to others. They can all use it, and then we all get stronger. And that's what open source is about. But a lot of business people don't understand that, think it's communism or whatever. But really, if you think about software and how we're all writing this book together collaboratively, if we have 1,000 authors, we're going to do way better than your one.
Exactly.
1,000, 2,000 eyeballs.
You need 2,000 eyeballs looking at the code. And so the second question by these guys were, okay, you don't have any patent, you don't have intellectual property, but maybe you can charge, you can have a revenue model like charge fees.
Sure.
So for example, Green Address had a 2 of 2 multi-sig system, so charge the multi-sig. Or put banners like advertising.
Advertising,
and
yeah,
then
yeah.
it was, and then Lawrence was like, okay, we cannot because fees would basically ruin the privacy because you could actually leak some information about fees, and banners, they are a security threat because you cannot really deliver pictures in a wallet without being a security threat.
Sure.
So also, if you do that, if you monetize, everybody can fork your wallet, remove or hijack the fees, or remove or hijack the banners. So the third question was, okay, this is the new economy. We don't need to charge fees. Many successful applications, they don't charge anything. The wealth is user data. So for sure, you collect user data. I'm sorry, no, we don't. And to the degree that we do, that's a bug we have to fix, and in the future we will not. So I realized that it was so difficult to basically all the honest way to monetize in Bitcoin were boring. Like build an exchange, then you can monetize, but then you will have to face KYC problems and AML problems.
And they've all had to, even local Bitcoins, once the big rebels of the world did the KYC, recently cut off their cash. I don't know what's local about them anymore.
Yeah, exactly.
People are trying to replace them, of course, making exact copies of what they used to do, and then the legality of that will be worked out. So.
It's good that there is people continue to move in the target. So like right now you have HODL, you have other guys managing good exchanges that are not custodial, so they can avoid this stuff. But it's, I mean, for me, I appreciate they are trying to do that. It's needed, but it was not for me because running away from the regulator and facing legal. I mean, I don't want to read legal documents at all in my life. That's not what I want to do.
There you
So
go.
exchange was not an option to monetize.
Yeah.
Then there is hardware. Hardware you can monetize, like ASICs or a hardware wallet with secure elements. They may become commodity in the future, but they're not commodity yet. So think about like Casa, Node. I mean, there is some kind of monetization model there.
Yeah.
But the entry barrier to do stuff well was and is super high.
Sure.
And I didn't feel like that. So what I did was the third kind of business model, which was basically consultancy. So it's not scalable, but I said it is sustainable at least. So there is knowledge. There is people without knowledge. They want knowledge. Let's get them paid for the knowledge.
Yeah.
So what we did was, together with Mir and other, we created a space in Milan, and we said all the Bitcoin experts that we decide they are Bitcoin experts, they're free to come for free. We will pay travel, food, and accommodation, and office space, and we will match them together. For example, this guy, Peter Todd, is working on notarization. This guy, Riccardo Casate, is also working on notarization. Let's put them together, working on a standard, and then Open Timestamps becomes a standard.
Yeah.
So maybe there is these companies working, Blockstream and Lightning Labs working on Lightning. Let's get them together with Amico Pay and others on the table, and then board specification came out. And same with tokenization and RGB and other stuff. So the idea was we will use money to help them building open source standards.
Yeah.
But then there is a lot of information going on in the space. I will use a small team to gather, structure, package, and sell this information as consultancy.
Right.
This was sustainable for 3 years, not super scalable. We stopped mostly because of personal reasons, because we had a daughter, so we could not spend all night and day in the lab.
Yeah.
And also the initial choice was to build it in Italy, which is, I mean, good for food and lifestyle, but you have problems with the Italian government a lot. We had checks and controls and people bothering us all the time.
Yeah.
So now I moved to Switzerland to do mostly education, and I just do that with a company called Bicademy. We just do workshops and courses, and that's all.
Great. And where can people learn more about your workshops and your courses, everything you're doing now?
So like there is a Bicademy, so BCA, so it's like A Academy, but with B instead of A.
All right.
And I think .it and other domains. And we're just starting, but eventually we will find there a lot of scheduled courses.
All right, great. And I also want to give you a chance to set the record straight. We had Mira on here before, and she said that she destroyed you at Street Fighter. She said she was a bigger nerd than you. She was better at computers than you. She made a lot of claims. They're allowed to stand, but we're giving you a chance to refute your wife's claims here.
So I cannot refute her claims factually because indeed she basically destroyed me on Street Fighter for the first 4 years of our marriage. And indeed she had a computer like 3 years before me, and she didn't destroy it. I had some time to catch up because when she was a teenager, she was a computer nerd. Then she tried to get into computer science as a field of study, but then she was also into music, so she switched to music and she let computer stuff go for a while, and then I have some time to catch up.
Giacomo moves into position. That's your chance.
And then, the final move was to have a baby. So now she's stuck with the baby, and I have time to become more excited.
There you
I know
go.
this is sexist, but this is how.
It's your only hope to catch up to her because she was so far ahead of you. And again, you have to practice your Street Fighter too, because again, this is a multi-level competition. You want to compete on all levels.
So biology is my secret weapon to keep her more. Of course.
The truth is going to come out. She's going to watch this video. She'll figure out all your plans. It's all public now. Everyone will know.
Yeah, but there's nothing she can do right now. The baby's there, so
I
will win.
The real question is, when will the baby beat you at Street Fighter?
That's
what we have coming. Yeah.
Also, maybe I don't know what kind of technological. Probably she will play video games in ways that we will not even.
Virtual reality, man.
Yeah, like.
What do you mean? You have to move your hands? Yeah, you don't have to use your hands.
Yeah, incredible. Not just your brain.
Yeah.
So it will be humiliating to see new generation making up as obsolete.
It will be, but at least we'll be there, and we'll try to live through it as long as we can.
And we will have a cool storytelling. Like I was there when Breaking Bitcoin 2019 was held in Amsterdam. So
that'll be
young generation. You cannot have that. You cannot be part of history.
Absolutely. All right, and Giacomo, where can they follow you on Twitter? Where can people find more about what you do?
Twitter, my name, Giacomo Zucco. If you are easily triggered, don't follow me because I'm a little bit toxic. But I also try to provide some useful information, so maybe mute me every week and then follow me every other week. And I still don't have any structured way to follow my activity. Like I had a blog, but I didn't update in the last 4 years. So Twitter is still, I have a central point of failure in Twitter.
Very good. Thank you so much
for
the interview.